Today we're going to show you how to use our VHS to DVD converter. Before you come in, you want to make sure you have three very important things. One is your VHS tape with whatever home video that you have. It has to be your own personal footage and not something that is copyrighted. So that Disney collection's got to stay at home. Second is your DVD. It needs to be a blank disc. You can do a DVD-R or an RW. That means record or rewritable. So the DVD-RW gives you a few more options, and that I've used DVD plus RW, and that works great if you want to do some kind of minor edits with our system. Or you can use a DVD-R, which will cause you to do just one extra step before you can play it into your DVD player. And I'll go over that a little more later. The third important thing that you absolutely must bring is your time, because this process takes a lot of time. The entire tape that you want to record has to play in real time in order to be recorded and captured and put onto your DVD. We've had people record as many as 30 VHS tapes here. So make sure you bring a project. There's certainly plenty of books to read, so you can grab one of those before you get started with your recording project. All right, so now to the machine. So once you get here and you're all set with your three things, then you're going to turn on this system. So I'm going to use the standby button here all the way on the far left and turn on the tape deck. Then I put a nice little arrow here to point to our power button for the monitor. Now the monitor is just to help you see what is being played on the VHS. So you don't have to have this on while you're recording. This is just to help you. Also, if you want to hear your sound, we have headphones here and there's a little volume dial on the side here. So feel free to use those. Okay, so now that I have these different parts turned on, you first want to look at your VHS tape. You want to make sure it's in good condition, because whatever you end up seeing is what's going to be recorded. So if there's blank spots, you can stop and skip over those and record from where the video picks up, so you don't have dead space on your DVD. But feel free to kind of bring in your tape maybe before you're even ready to record, and we're gonna put it in. And I like to rewind mine all the way to the beginning. And these controls here, we have this little blown up version here. These control the VHS player. These controls we'll deal with later for the DVD player. So I have it rewound, and then I'm going to just press play just to kind of see what's on the tape. You see there's kind of snow here in the beginning, so there's nothing there. But now I have some video. It may be a little jittery in the beginning because it's figuring out its tracking, but it should steady out here in a little bit. So I want to make sure to capture this. I'm also going to check the sound. Yeah, so I hear the sound coming through. If it gets really jittery like this, sometimes I will stop the tape and rewind it again to kind of help reset that tracking. And then press play again to see if that helps. Sometimes that can help. A little more clear. Okay, so I know that I have a lot of footage on here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and record the whole thing. I've already reviewed this tape. I know that it works out. So there's a couple of things before you kind of start recording that you have to double check on the machine, just because we're in a public space and people can come use this anytime the library is open. we want to make sure all of the settings are what we want for our project. So the first setting that we want to make sure is I'm going to put our little remote here on the table, because this remote needs to point to our VHS recorder. So I'm going to press the button here that says Setup. It's right next to the little arrows. So I'm going to press Setup, and I see I have the general settings. So under general settings, I'm going to click OK. And then I want to check our recording. So let's go down to recording, and I'm going to press OK. The next thing I'm checking is the dubbing. So dubbing is when you're recording from one thing to another. So I want to make sure that when we go to dubbing mode, that it's going from the VCR to the DVD player, because you can go from the DVD player to the VCR, just in case someone doesn't have the DVD player, but they do have the VCR, and maybe you're trying to make a video that is available to that person only with that technology. I know it's not as common now, but it's there as an option with this machine. So we want to make sure that our dubbing mode is from VCR to DVD. So I see that and I click OK. Then I am going to just click on Return until I back out of this menu. If you're using a DVD-R, you might use that menu again, so make friends. Okay, next, now that I know that the tape is where I want it to be, I need to put in my DVD. So I'm going to press our Open Close button here on the DVD side of our recorder. So I'm going to press Open Close, and I have my little DVD-R DVD-RW. It's a plus RW that I'm using because I like to do a little bit of editing as I record. I'm going to put it in the tray. And for DVDs, you want to make sure you're holding it by the edges so you're not putting fingerprints here, because the laser light needs to go through that little surface. So if you remember, scratches and fingerprints are not your friend here. And you also want to be careful of this back as well, because that's actually where the information is being recorded. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the tray. And then I'm going to use the button again, because if we press this, that can really destroy the motor for this tray. So we want to use our button always. Always use our button here. And we have to kind of wait for it to read, because it might need to format this disk. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to do the next part of my setup, and that is setting the recording mode. Now the recording mode is how much space or information you're going to put on one DVD. So my VHS tape, typically they're an hour, 2 hours long, but mine is actually 6 hours long. And I want to be sure to put all of this information onto one DVD. I don't want to have a whole bunch. So it's usually best to kind of match whatever amount of information. Maybe you're taking just all your Christmas recordings and putting a bunch of different tapes. That's totally fine, but you want to make sure you're setting your recording mode. In our little paper here, we actually have a rec mode that shows 60 minutes, 120, 150, and it says best to worst quality. So if you have something that is only 60 minutes, then you can go ahead and use that high quality setting because you don't need the extra space. Now, if you have something that's really short and then another tape with things that are longer, you can change these in between sections that you're recording. So this gives you a lot of options. So let's look at how to do that. So for this, I want to make sure that I'm on the DVD side, and then I'm going to press, there's a little DVD button, And then in the lower left corner, there's this rec mode. So here I have this SLP, and it tells me I have 6 hours. And if you've already had something recorded on this DVD, it'll actually show you how much space you have left on that mode. So if you keep pressing that is when you get your other options. So I'm just going to keep pressing this rec mode in the lower left corner, and I can see all of the different options and how long those options allow me to put onto my DVD. So I'm going to use my 6-hour SLP recording mode. Okay, so I have my VHS all set. I have my DVD in and ready. All of the different settings are selected. Now I just start by pressing our de-dubbing button. And this is the part where you gotta get comfortable. You can turn off our monitor here if you're recording some sensitive information for yourself. Maybe you don't want your kids' Christmas to be on display for everyone. So you can just turn off the monitor here. It will not affect your recording, but it's just if you want to be able to watch your recording as it's going, maybe you have to stop and start between some of that empty space like we talked about. So this should give you plenty of options for watching or not to kind of reminisce. Now, I definitely recommend, we have had people kind of bring in crochet projects or bring in a good book. I like to sit with the machine and make sure the tape's working properly, that I didn't miss any spots that I need to not record, things like that. But sometimes nature calls, you might have to visit the restroom. So we have a little sign that says recording in progress. So if you happen to need to step away for a minute, maybe to grab that book or go to the restroom, you can put this sign in front of the monitor. You can turn this off or you can leave it on, either way. But this clues in anybody coming in that there is a recording going on. So that way nobody stops it and maybe they try and use the machine instead. So this will kind of give people a clue. It's best to not leave it too long because people do forget that to bring the sign back down. So we want to make sure we have people watching their projects and be sure that the equipment's in working order. So yeah, it's gonna take a long time. And you know, I've got this tape that's 6 hours long. I'm not gonna be able to do it all in one session. So that's totally fine. With this, you can stop and start your recording. So as an example of how that works, I'm gonna show that right now. So for this, say I've recorded maybe an hour or two and I'm ready to go home for the day. I'm gonna press stop here on the DVD side. And now it's gonna write all of the things that it recorded to my DVD. So it's gonna take all of that information from its memory and put it onto my disk. This part, again, that third ingredient is time. So for as long as it's recording, it's going to take more time to write to that disk because there's more information. If you're doing little short clips, this might go pretty quick. It's definitely not as long as the whole recording, but you can see it does take some time. Great. So now you see that I have my DVD menu up. This is what the player will actually do to create a DVD menu, like when you put in a regular commercial DVD, to choose these different video options. So anytime you stop and start, it will begin a different section. And now you see I have 5 hours and 56 minutes left, and that's how much space I have left on my DVD. And the really neat thing is it stopped the VHS as well as recording to the DVD. So all you need is that dubbing button and your stop button. Say I want to begin recording again, tell it stop. So stop gets me out of that DVD menu, and then I can hit my dubbing button again. It'll start playing my VHS tape and then start recording. If you're afraid of missing a section, you can always rewind the tape just a little bit and then start dubbing from there. That's a good trick so that you don't have any gaps in your video. But for the most part, because I just stopped and started, it's totally fine. So I'm gonna stop here again. And again, it's gonna write. So anytime you're doing something that changes the information on that disk, it's gonna need time to write or format as we're working. Great. So now you see I have 2 sections of that video now. The other neat thing is that you see how it says VCR SLP? That's just what the DVD recorder kind of puts as a generic name. If you know that maybe it's a Christmas concert, or if you're putting all of your different Christmas recordings all together, you can put the date and things on that. There's a couple of really neat edits that you can do, and it can be pretty cool. Now that you've captured your different sections of video, you have kind of a decision at this point. You can move on and edit the different parts of the DVD menu and some of the different features. Or if you don't want to do that, you can do what's called finalizing the disc. Now there's 2 things, 2 types of discs that we've talked about, the RW and the DVD-R. So I'm gonna show what the menu looks like when you're going to finalize the disc. So this first disc is a DVD-RW. So this is what will look like. Usually you can just put this into a DVD player and it'll work great. But if you're using the R, then that means that there's going to be extra steps. So I want to show you what to see if you don't need to finalize the disc first. So I stopped the DVD menu with our stop on the DVD side, and now I'm going to press our setup button again. And now I'm going to go down here to our disc edit. Oops. And I'm going to press OK. You can see I've got disk name, erase disk, make edits compatible, and disk protect on and off. So that's if you don't want someone to copy this disk or something like that, which most people are wanting to use a computer to do a disk-to-disk copy, so I would leave that turned off. So if you're using an RW, this is what you'll see. And it means that you don't need to take any other steps. Your disc is ready to go, and you can play it on your DVD player. So let's take a look at what it looks like if we do need to finalize. So this is our RW. I'm putting in a DVD-R. It's a -R. So again, our third ingredient, that time. Okay, so here you see I've got a different DVD menu, and I want to go to finalize. So I need to stop my DVD menu. So I'm pressing stop on the DVD side. And then again, I'm going to that setup and go down to disk edit with my little arrows and press OK. Now you see how this menu is a little different. You can see finalize is one of the options now. So to finalize this disk, I just go down to Finalize and then press OK. And it's going to ask, do you really want to finalize this disk? Because once you finalize a DVD-R, that means that you can no longer add any more information or delete titles or anything like that on this disk because it's closing it off and making sure that it has all of the information it needs for a DVD player to understand what's on the disk. So if you go home after capturing your VHS tape and say it's not working in your DVD player, it could be that you need to bring your DVD back and do this step of finalizing it. So if you're finalizing, that's what allows you to play in your DVD player. We're gonna go up here to yes and finalize that disk. And here again, we have to wait. So you'll see it does take some time. If you are interested in editing the different menus or the pictures that show up in the DVD menu, or maybe you want to put what's called a chapter marker, and that's what allows you to skip to certain sections of a video on your DVD, you're more than welcome to keep watching this video and learn how to do each of those steps. So we'll review those next. If this is all you're interested in, go ahead and stop here and capture away. And I hope you have lots of fun being able to pass on those memories to the next generation. All right, happy making. You see how it says VCR SLP? That's just what the DVD recorder kind of puts as a generic name. If you know that maybe it's a Christmas concert, or if you're putting all of your different Christmas recordings all together, you can put the date and things on that. There's a couple of really neat edits that you can do, and it can be pretty cool. So I'm going to show you a couple of those. Again, I keep my remote here on the table, so it's pointing at our VHS or at the recorder. And I can play the clip. So let's see what that clip looks like. I'm using the arrows and the OK button. And if you want to go back, you can click on Return. Oh, no, Disk Menu. So if you want to go back, you want to click on Disk Menu, and it's just in the kind of left of the little arrows. Okay, so you can play it, see what it looks like, listen to it, things like that. But say I wanted to rewind the tape a little bit because there was a little bit missing, I'm not sure. I can go to Edit, and you see this overwrite, that's also an option, but I like to go to Edit, and you can delete the title. So if I click on Delete Title, and I go yes, and it asks you again, are you sure? Yes. So again, we made that change. So that's going to get rid of that little bit of video clip. So say it was not a very good recording, you can always record over that with a DVD-RW. That's one of the nice benefits. So now I go back to just those two clips in my menu. So maybe you didn't want to record something. That's one way to do it, is to delete that title. It's best to review before you start recording the next one, because you always want to be working with the one on the bottom rather than the one on the top. Okay. The other neat thing that you can edit, I'm gonna go into my menu, I'm clicking OK and moving the arrow down to Edit and clicking OK again. You can edit your title. So I can change this. So I'm going to go to Title and tell it OK. And there's a little keyboard in the numbers, kind of like the touch tone phones when you're doing letters in a phone number. I'm going to click on clear to get rid of the title that's here. And I know that this is a hula workshop, so I'm going to go press on 4 twice to get my H. And then I can use my arrows to go between uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols. So it's a matter of moving our arrows and pressing OK to switch to that section. So I'm going to put in oops, that went the other way. So I want to move my little arrow to the side. When I went back and forth, I need to go put that little yellow spot in the area that I want to put that letter. So I'm going to say hula. And then there's a little space button. And I'm going to say workshop. And that's my title change. I would typically put a date or maybe the teacher, something like that. And I'm going to tell it OK. And it's going to say, do I really want to change that title? I'm going to say yes. So now that changes our title. So if I go back to disk menu or return, so in this case I need to click on return. And it's going to write that title onto the disk. So now it says Hula Workshop, and then I still have my empty title here. And it tells me how long it is. There's other things you can edit, and you can do a bunch of these edits at the same time. You can also edit your chapter markers. Chapter markers are kind of like little sections of your video. So say you're recording a school recital and you want to be able to skip between the different performances. So by putting a chapter marker in different parts of your video, it gives you the ability to skip rather than kind of fast forward or rewind to find sections. So if you know that there's things that need to break up your video, but that you don't want different recordings, chapter markers are really handy for that. So to do that, we can click on chapter marker, and wherever it is here in your sample of the video, this is your whole video that you've recorded, you can click on pause. After you find the section that you want to put a chapter marker, you can rewind, maybe you missed it, and then you can pause again. So I'm using the little buttons for the pause and rewind here at the bottom. So once I get that chapter marker where I want it to be, I can go ahead and click on add and tell it yes. And you see there's a little line that shows up here on this video timeline. So that means that if I start the video and press skip, it's going to go to that next line instead of having to go all the way to the end of the video. So I can click on return to go back to this main menu. And you can hide chapters. You can also choose an index picture. So your index picture is the little preview picture on the DVD menu. If you find maybe a different view on your DVD, you can click on pause. Maybe this is the view that we want to show and on the DVD menu. Maybe you had a little snow or something in the beginning and you want to have a more clear picture of what that section of video is. We can put that index picture. So you get your little preview here, you go down to index picture, and then click on OK, and we're going to tell it yes. And that's how you put a different picture in your menu. The last bit here is title dividing. So if I go and pause here and I click on title dividing. This is great if you've got, maybe you recorded a little too far and it was empty space. Maybe you had stepped away for a minute and you didn't want that section. You can put your little playhead here, this little arrow, and find that section where you want to kind of cut it off and go down here to title dividing. And we're going to click OK. And you can go up here to yes. So again, writing to that disk. So that's going to separate that video into little sections on your DVD menu. Maybe you had different Christmases on different years and they're all recorded on one tape and you want to separate them by year on your DVD menu. That would be a great time to do that title divide. Or maybe you recorded empty space and you wanted to get rid of that on your disc because you needed to put more. You can do that title divide and then delete that title like we did a bit ago. So we did a couple of different edits, so that's why it's going to take a little while longer. So now I see I have the different video clips. So that's where it separated that video. So again, if I wanted to get rid of that clip, I can do edit and then do that title delete. Okay, so I'm going to click on return here. Go to our DVD menu. So these are, and you see how when we divided that clip, it kept that same title. So then you can adjust that title for this section and make it different from that one. So all kinds of fun things to keep in mind. These machines are really great in that you can do all of these different options. You don't need any other extra software in order to do this. Now, if you're using a DVD RW, you could put this in a DVD player and it would work fine. But if you're using a DVD-R, there's one extra step. So I'm going to eject this with our open close button. And show you an example of what our finalizing looks like. Again, that third ingredient, a lot of time. Okay, so you can see I haven't changed a lot of these different things. I'm going to click on stop to get out of my DVD menu, and I'm going to go to that setup. And I'm going to go, you can also do things like title list and disc edit. So you can change your disc name so that when you put this DVD into your computer, it'll say whatever title you have for that disc. Maybe it's Robinson Family Christmas or Talent Show 2019, something like that. You can edit your disc, and it's the same as editing our title. So using these different menus for uppercase and lowercase are numbers and symbols just by going and using the arrows and using our little number pad up at the top. I don't really want to do that, so I also wanted to show you if you have a -R, you have to do this finalize. So that's under our setup, so that's that setup button, and our disc edit. And then you would click on finalize. But once you have your disc finalized, that's when it will read in your DVD player. And if you happen to go home, maybe you ran out of time or you just plumb forgot to finalize, you can bring your disc back here and put it in and go through this step. You can tell it stop, and get into your setup and go down to disk edit. Yep. And finalize your disk. We have run into some random disks that needed finalized, so definitely bring them in. You want to make sure it was a DVD recorded on our machine so that it should be able to work. The other important thing is make sure you take all your stuff home. So I'm going to eject my DVD. Just kind of take it out. You can write on it with a felt tip marker, like a Sharpie, that is soft enough that it won't scratch that information off. So we have Sharpies here, so feel free to label your disc however you need to. And I'm going to make sure to eject my VHS tape to be able to take that home. And I make sure to review any footage. I'm cautious about getting rid of tapes and things, so I like to keep them as backup just in case. And I can turn off the monitor and turn off the player. And then that's it. One last thing before you go. If you've done all of these awesome disc edits and made this a wonderful DVD for yourself and your family, one of the things that I recommend, if you want to make copies for your family, you don't have to do all of these steps again. You can take your disc and another empty disc over to our digital media computer and use the software on there to do what's called a disc-to-disc copy. Go ahead and ask staff to help you perform those steps to be able to make a much faster copy of what is on your DVD. We have a few other really great tools to help you. Say maybe you have a mini DV tape from your camcorder. We have a little tape converter, so you put those little mini tapes into here and then it can be recorded with that. We also have, if you have cassette tapes, we have a little cassette tape for helping capture, and that's going to be on our digital media computer. So it's a little different, but also really useful. So feel free to come in whenever you have time to use our VHS to DVD converter and save and convert those memories and share it with your friends and family. All right, happy making.